Malaka Gharib. Welcome to Wild Precious Life.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Malaka, you're a journalist, a cartoonist, a graphic novelist, and a first generation Filipino Egyptian American whose art and writing have been exhibited internationally and are archived in the Smithsonian. And I've read both of your graphic memoirs. It won't always be like this. And I Was Their American Dream. But I wonder, for listeners who aren't yet familiar with you and your work, will you tell us some of your story? How did you become you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking that. That's a lovely question. How did I become me? I actually started my art practice in the world of zine making. Since I was a teenager, I always loved making my own magazines and zines, so much so that I actually studied magazine journalism in college, and then continued to make tiny magazines after I graduated from school, while pursuing a career in journalism. And in the world of zine making, comics go hand in hand. I've always been like a doodler, and when I had this opportunity to say something after the 2016 election about my identity, the medium that I chose to express myself in was comics. And that really surprised me because I've always been a multidisciplinary artist, and I didn't really know that term yet at that age, which is my late 20s. And I didn't know that's what I called myself. But I could have written essays about it. I could have done collages. I could have made a zine about my first generation identity. But I chose to do comics. And I Was Their American Dream was my first time writing a full-length graphic novel. And I had a hard transition in. I had to learn how to draw with a computer. I had to learn color theory, which I didn't know anything of. And it really remains to this day like just a primary way that I express myself. So it's kind of like a second career in self-expression.
I love that. Mira Jacob, who I saw blurbed one of your books, who we've also had on the show, is also someone who surprised herself by working in graphic media. She said of your most recent book, quote, "What a joy it is to have your heart expertly broken and put back together within the space of a few panels." I completely agree with that. Someone else wrote, "This is the book that's been missing from my bookshelf." And that was my exact feeling. I have read lots and lots of books, but your bicontinental story, this particular one of being the American daughter of a Filipino mom and an Egyptian dad, being raised in both California and Egypt, I didn't know this story yet, and it was such an honor reading it.
Thank you so much for saying that.
And it's bananas. I don't know about you, but like growing up, a Filipino Egyptian American growing up in our school, it would have sounded like I was calling you a name. But that's how you identify, right? That's what you are. Where did you learn to talk about identity and race this way?
I only recently in my late 20s, I like never really thought critically about it until the 2016 election. And it was my realization that, oh, I thought that Americans were cool with immigrants. And I was very wrong. I think that a generation before me, Arab American generation before me, had sort of had this awakening after 9/11, but I was a little bit too young to grasp what it meant to be an American immigrant in this country during 9/11, after 9/11. So the 2016 election kind of was my moment. And seeing a lot of negative rhetoric in the news about immigrant people made me start to question as an adult, what do Americans think about immigrants? What do I think about having immigrant parents? What do I think about being Filipino? And how does that compare with my feelings about being Egyptian? And then I realized, oh no, I've spent so much of my time trying to erase these identities in favor of whiteness because my parents and society had taught me that the best way to assimilate into society was to understand how white people act, how they eat, how they greet people, what they say, how they talk, how they dress, how they get educated, what their goals are in life, what their homes look like, so that I could better integrate, because that's what they thought success would be for me. That's how they wanted me to secure my success. And that made me very sad. And that's what I wrote about, was sort of going back, tracing back and retracing my steps of how I got here.
My college roommate talks a little bit about this. She's the daughter of a Chinese immigrant and an Indian immigrant, and they came to this country. And one of the first things they did was try to erase any of that difference, right? So like they had J.C. Penney portraits, and she and her brother were not given the gift of language. They were only spoken to in English so that they would assimilate and not be seen as different. But in one of your books, you talked about like the great and wondrous gift that you realized that you have, right? You have these amazing attachments to cultures that instead of trying to suppress this, that are now celebrated on your pages. And I'm grateful. I teach when I'm not doing this. I teach in high schools, and I'm really grateful. I'm thinking of the kids who I'm going to hand this book to, or these books to, and have them find themselves in your pages.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel so grateful that the book resonated. I remember in my first book event, I was in California, and my uncle Tito Ovid, who's on the cover of I Was Their American Dream, asked like, why would anybody be interested in our family? And I was like, I don't know, Tito Ovid. I don't know, but that I Was Their American Dream has now sold 60,000 books, just that book, and it's being taught so widespread in schools, from fifth grade to college level, and people do graduate papers on it. And I could have never imagined how many people were able to relate, no matter what ethnicity you are, and even if you're not an immigrant from an immigrant background, it's still very relatable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've been drawing and writing for a few years now, but I found your work very recently in a banned book conversation. I've said on this show before that when I hear about a book being banned, that's usually a book I want to read. And I've read both. It Won't Always Be Like This, and I Was Their American Dream, and I was actually had to try really hard to figure out why on earth. I guess on one page in like one place you write about the existence of periods, and like in another cartoon the existence of cigarettes, but I can't even begin to understand why anyone would suggest to ban your work. What is that about?
Well, in that particular school district in Iowa, the argument was that it was a picture book, and it was proposed to be banned along with American Born Chinese, which is a TV show and a cult graphic memoir of the highest degree of respect that anyone can offer a graphic novel, or you know what I mean? And so when I spoke to teachers privately at the school, they suspected that the real subtext was that it was immigrant voices and DEI teachings being the culprit. So also yikes for them, you know?
Yeah, no, that's incredibly frustrating. I'm glad to hear, though, when you talk about the numbers, I'm glad to hear that the overwhelming reception for your writing has been that it's finding its way into classrooms and into the hands of students who want to read and who need to read about the fact that many, many, many of us have stories about parts of our family that either we're from away or that we felt like we couldn't share. And I love that you bring that forward.
Thank you.
I know this is not a political show. We talk to creative people about your works, but you spent your summers in Egypt, and you had a dad who worked throughout the Middle East. Your family once took a trip to, like, you're on vacation, and you're hearing like loud noises, and they're not fireworks; they're actually bombs because you're 30 minutes from the West Bank. I wonder, first off, how you make sense of that experience, and if you've ever thought of writing more political story.
Yeah. I remember at the time how normal it was to see beachgoers on one side of where we were in El Arish, which is a town away from Rafah, which is a border town between the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula. And I just remember thinking like, oh, and I just put my headphones back in and like continued listening to like electronic music. It was like do 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 boom, and like, but I did feel very unnerved, and I think as a teenager I knew how lucky I was in the lottery of things that my father had decided to. It's not just also the war that I experienced 30 minutes away from my personhood, my location. There's also the extreme poverty that I witnessed in Egypt, visiting time and time and time again. Extreme poverty, like you can't imagine living next to middle class life. We had a maid who was 12 years old, who lived in, I think, like a hut with her family, and she helped my stepmother with the day to day. And I was also 12 years old, but I was 12 years old and playing video games, and she was doing dishes and like changing diapers. And it was a really hard reality to wrap my head around. And then going back to California, where it's like nothing like that ever exists. But I think that it gave me as a young person a different way of understanding the world and understanding that America is not at the center. We think that America is at the center, but when you go to the Middle East is the center. When you go to Asia, the Asia is the center. Asia is the center. So I think that it shocked me how quickly I was normalized to that kind of life. Later on, I became a journalist. I had always worked, I worked in the nonprofit space first, where I worked for anti-poverty organizations. I worked for Bono, I worked for Malala, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, and we always worked on topics that championed some of the world's poorest people, most marginalized communities. And when I first started at NPR, I wrote about marginalized peoples in really, really poor contexts. And I was very grateful to have the upbringing that I did to be able to understand how to cover these people a little bit more and understand the importance of why we need to cover these people. My work in journalism, I mean, it is touches on political topics. I've covered many kinds of wars. I've covered some stories in the Ukraine war, in the civil war in Yemen. I've covered the Syrian crisis. I've touched on the Gaza crisis and how to protect your mental health. Maybe there is an opportunity for me to write more about this in my own personal works, but right now they live in journalism.
These are not political stories too. I mean, what's so interesting about your books is the way you are simultaneously experiencing these cultures and around the world, but you're also just like a 13-year-old kid who doesn't want to help your stepmom with the dishes. Like I love the macro and micro stories at play here. Like that you're simultaneously a kid listening to bombs across the way and someone who's like, ugh, do we have to eat that again? Can't we go to the mall? Or what? So they're both. It's gorgeous. Because again, I think if this was like a straight up history book, or if I put this in front of a student, like, here, you're going to read about Egypt. Like, yeah, some kids would go for that and some kids would not. But if you're going to read about how to learn how to wear makeup from your hijab wearing stepmom, who you didn't even know that your dad had married at first, there's just a way in here that's glorious for young people, especially.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's hard for me to be academic about it because I was just a sort of selfish teen at the end of the day. I asked my stepmom recently, why didn't you ask me to help you out more? And she was like, I don't know, like, you were a brat. And I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Are you guys still in contact? So I'm not trying to give away spoilers, but there are characters who come through the book and who then also disappear from the story. But are the people who you talk about in this story, are they people with whom you're still in contact?
Oh my gosh, more than you think. So first of all, my stepmom and I still haven't seen each other since the divorce, but I'm going to Egypt this year with my son and my husband, and we will hopefully see each other. My dad is trying to get back with my stepmom. So I don't really, after his fourth divorce, he married again, and that for the fourth time, got a divorce and was like, maybe I should go out with Hala again. And we were all like, Dad, don't do it. Don't do it, Dad, please. But he did it anyways. Anyways, I don't think that she's going to go for it. But it's just very funny how life works out. My brother Ahmed, my sister Dunya, they live here in the States. Ahmed was just here for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And my sister Dunya is in Houston. So yeah, we're very much in contact still. And it's really cool to think that My dad's finest work was making sure that we had a good relationship with each other.
Yeah. So for folks who haven't read it, your dad and mom meet in California, correct?
They meet in tech, and yeah, California. Yeah.
Okay. But then when they split up, at one point your dad is in California, but then he goes back to Egypt when his own father is sick. So your relationship with your dad is sort of interstitial. It's summer times
Yes.
in Egypt. And he's still away. He's not in the States, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I love about your story is that people say what they consider to be fervent beliefs. So, at one point, your dad finds out that you're dating a white guy, and that you're actually going to marry, and he says, you know, he even tells you, like, quote, he's going to be punished by God for not being there to help you marry a Muslim, right? Like, that's a pretty big statement from dad, right?
I
But
know.
so, like, I love these like very fervent beliefs about like how it's supposed to go, and then I also like the way that life happens and just love wins. And your dad, you are his American dream, right? He's going to love who you love, and he's going to support who you support. And it sounds like you and your husband, and now your child, like you're bringing your son to Egypt. How amazing is that? Like you were this belly aching kid who has shipped off to Egypt sometimes, and now you get to bring your son, and he'll get to bellyache and also love it
Yeah.
in the same sentence.
I know. I can't believe it. Now more white people have been married into our family, and I'm the blueprint. They're like, well, Malaka married a white guy, so can I. And so it's like, well, there's nothing we can do. There used to be this like big to do, big fuss, and now there's no fuss. It's like, ah, the dam has been broken. It's cool getting to take my husband, actually, my husband's entire family from Knoxville, Tennessee, are going to Egypt as well. They're going on a tour.
Amazing. I
So
do
it's,
hope we get at least one cartoon about
I
that.
know. It's like they're taking like 40 older retired people from Knoxville with them. So that'll be really fun.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. You just never know how life is going to go. It'll surprise you in such weird ways. I mean, if you had told like the 15-year-old me that like, oh no, 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 these people are still going to be in your life in like 30 years, so just hold on tight, I would have never believed me. Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you. So Filipinos travel in packs. Like we roll deep. Like if there's, it's not just like one of us or two of us, it's going to be like 20 of us. So you have to learn in Filipino culture and family life to roll with the flow, go with the flow. And you can't have one, you can't like, I always tell my husband when I'll teach this to you. Actually, let me answer this question in the context of what I tell my husband in these contexts. I tell Darren, we're visiting my family, I say, I know that it seems easier to just meet at the restaurant, but no, we are all going to go to Tita Pinky's house first, and then we're going to go to the restaurant. And I know it doesn't make sense, but this is the plan because everyone's doing it, so we're going to have to do it. So that's one thing that I tell my husband. On my Arab side, I let me think of some stuff that I've told him before. Here's a typical one. When we're at a party, you're going to have to sit with the men and don't come to me because I'm sitting with the women. You cannot come to me. You have to make friends or make conversation, light conversation with the men around you. Good luck. So that's what I tell him. Just little things like that. I think that that's other thing too is that there's like a lot of politeness and respect in Arab culture, and it's a little bit more buttoned up and formal than you think. The real you doesn't. You don't really show that because it's seen as kind of disrespectful and impolite to be the real you. So if you can, just be, I guess, the most polite version of yourself until there's a door that opens and you can walk through that door.
Which is surely was confusing sometimes as a young person. I mean, you portray yourself in one of your graphic memoirs. You're praying, and so you're simultaneously praying to both Allah and also to God, and like the Catholic sense of it. And you're trying to navigate like what faith looks like when you're being taught like a first communion on the Filipino side, and when you're being taught gender roles and who's going to like cover themselves as a woman. You take a skateboard to Egypt at one point, and that does not go well.
The skateboard was a disaster. I was like going through a punk phase, okay? I was like wearing black. I had like goth makeup. I would like listen to my CD player all the time. Imagine if smartphones were there back then. I would have never stopped looking at my phone, I bet. To talk about the religion aspect, briefly, you know what I was saying about how there's sort of this formality in Arab culture where you sort of have to, out of respect for older people or respect for your parents, that's where a lot of my respect toward religion stemmed from too. I could tell that clearly religion was very important to both my parents, and so following their code of conduct in front of each of them was the respectful thing to do for them. I don't know how I learned that as a 7-year-old. That seems quite prescient, but I somehow like absorbed that this was a very, very serious topic, and to veer away from it would be very taboo in our family culture. So for a long time, if my mom wanted me to be a choir singer, I was a choir singer. I know all the Catholic songs. If my dad wanted me to memorize one of the longest surahs in the Quran, the Tahiyat, I would memorize it. So I was a very dutiful religious person to my parents. It was very conflicting inside, especially when you really believe like, oh my God, there's like a devil angel and like a good angel on my shoulders, and they're always watching everything I do. It's so traumatic as a kid to have to like know that they're watching your every move. I think that it was for a long time, I decided not to discuss subculture with my dad because I didn't think he would understand. My dad could possibly never could I possibly explain to this man who spent 17 years in the United States, but I'm telling you, like he was living in a bubble, okay? He was not living, like, he was not going to rock concerts. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know. He's like a bit clueless on that front. So I never felt like I could explain subculture, but only recently have I been able to sort of talk about subculture with him. And that's because comics and zines have become tremendously popular in Cairo and art book fairs. And so I've had him go to the Cairo like comic festival, Cairo arts festival, and he's come to a comics event in Dubai with me, and he can see he gets it now. He's like, oh, other people are making little books. And I was like, yes, Daddy, other people are making little books. And I also got him to participate in a zine workshop with me in Dubai that I led with my ex-stepmother, and her kid and my siblings, and they were all there making zines. My son was there too. And I think that like something clicked, they got it. And I really think that our world with social media and has become so small and so much more interconnected. And I'm really glad that he finally gets this little part of me, which is a very important part of my cultural identity.
That's right, because you did not decide to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, which from my previous guests who have been children of immigrants explained that like those were the only choices that you could be. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And you somehow, I mean, I maybe comic and writer were on the list, but I didn't see them. So you've made them proud in your own way, but I'm sure it took them a moment.
Here's the hard part though, that I think that I want to say to listeners is that, you know, I had to achieve the highest level of achievement as a writer and a graphic novelist and a cartoonist for me to get recognition from my parents. My mom didn't really accept, I think that she has always thought I was a nice artist, but it really hit her when I was published in the New Yorker. And she was like, oh, shiz, you're like a cartoonist with a capital C. And I was like, yes, I am. And my dad didn't quite understand what it meant to write a book until he was at the this book festival in the Emirates, and my book was there, and it was translated in Arabic for him to really fully understand that, like, the book is a book, all right? We're not talking about. He also visited my office at NPR, and he's like, "Oh, NPR is a nice building, nice building." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a nice building, Dad. I work at a major media organization." But I feel like if anything lesser than that, I don't think that I would have had a really hard time gaining acceptance from my parents. I mean, I still am haunted by some of the things that my family told me when I said I wanted to become a journalist, which is you'll never make money, you'll never find a job, and it's going to be really hard for you. And I think that they had a limited scope into what possible jobs could be in the world. And I feel like they didn't really give me a chance. I had to sort of, in Filipino culture, you go with the flow. It's like if your family wants you to be a nurse, then you're fucking be a nurse. You know what I mean? But I think that I had to do a lot of pushback, and I've gotten an apology recently. And actually, the person who told me I would never make money or get a job in journalism is coming to visit Nashville this week. And I'm really excited for her to see my house and my life here and see what she thinks.
Yeah, that separateness sounded like it was also important for you. You wrote that in Filipino culture, there was no such thing as your own life. Your life was the one you led with your family, right? That those were one and the same. And so it would have been probably pretty easy for you to stay in California and go to school there. And instead, you did what we all did, which was apply to NYU and not get in. and then like we all did, like your life is over, and then like we all did, you find another path. And in your case, it was Syracuse, and it sounds like you're living away from your family now. But you're right, the world has been made smaller by our phones and the ability we have to still connect with people from
That's
away.
right.
And I love that. I also like when you back to the subculture with your dad. I like the way my children can talk to my parents-in-law, and in my case, my mom, in a way that I can't. You know what I mean? Like I can't tell you the number of times I might have tried to like have a conversation with my in-laws about politics, and it's going to go off the rails so fast.
Oof.
But my teenage daughters, because the grandparents, like, they want to connect with them in a different way, and they're like willing to hang in there. My teenage daughters can maybe explain something to my in-laws that maybe they would be more willing to listen to them because they're children, but they're also like opening their eyes to issues that in a way that I can't. So there's something intergenerational, I think, about the way our parents connect and want to show up for our children in ways that they were our authority figures. They weren't going to show up for us that way. But with their grandbabies, they can just be pals.
I hope so. I grew up with my grandparents and all four of them, and I loved them. And I always loved older people. I still love older people. I love to learn from them. I love to hear their stories, probably because I'm a storyteller, so I love to hear them yap. I love to ask them about their grandparents, about what they think about death, and I always love to ask them, like, are you afraid you're going to die soon, Nanai? Like, I still ask her that. I asked her that the last time I saw her. They have humor. They've lived life. I hope that my parents can teach my son something about themselves and their culture, and speak to him more openly, as you say, than they did with me. Although I am not afraid to go back. Sometimes. So, going back with writing the books, I've had to rip off some Band-Aids.
Yeah. Did you ever draft out? I mean, I've written some memoir, but were there untellable stories? Were there the outtakes or I mean, you can't tell me because they didn't want them in there, but were there bridges that were too far?
Yeah, but I did talk to them about it. Like, one of the things that I asked my dad was, or my mom. So, for example, she really didn't want to be portrayed as we didn't talk about her second marriage. And I was like, that's okay. We don't need to talk about the second marriage. That's fine.
Yeah.
So we lightly touched on it, very lightly.
Yeah. I mean, I know there are folks who are just like, your story is your story. And if they can tell their story. I know there are folks who kind of take a really hard line, but I'm always thinking about, but I have to still live inside this unfinished story, right? It's not like I write the book and these people aren't still in my life. And so if someone really, it's interesting what people feel strongly about too. Like I've had someone say, well, but the shirt, I wasn't wearing a blue shirt that day. Just like,
Yeah.
that's really like, that's what you're going to take. Okay, sure. We can change the shirt color. When I'm thinking about, what about the dialogue that I have invented from memory and I'm not sure I got right? I don't remember either. That's fine.
Yeah, you know what? I'll change the shirt color. I was more concerned for my stepmom Hala, who doesn't speak English, and I had to, because I'm a journalist. So like in journalism, you don't want a source to ever be surprised by the published story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just that language is like drilled into my brain. So with Hala, I had to repeat several times to her through my brother, who was a translator, and my sister, who was a translator. In the Arab world, it's very taboo for a mother to reveal her first name, for example, right? And so it's even more taboo to talk about what goes on inside the home. And it is even more taboo to talk about a divorce. It is even more taboo to talk about how you left your children with dad. Are you prepared to have your name attached to all of these things, and potentially in Arabic, and potentially to do this, to do media on this, and potentially reveal your identity? Are you prepared for that? And it sounded like, in 2020, it sounded like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I said, no, I'm serious. Because now, today, the Arabic language book that is a tell-all of her life story practically as an adult is in a bookstore miles away from her house. Anybody, any person in her family, any person in her life, her friends, can read it and understand. Maybe they didn't know the one side of the story, but they can now. So I think that disclosure and transparency is really important. And you don't want to burn any bridges. And I didn't think I would see Hal again when I was 23, but I will in November. And I'm glad I didn't do things badly, handled it irresponsibly.
Yeah, I think in the hands of a lesser writer and maybe a lesser human, she could have become a villain in this story, and that's not at all the way she's seen. There's a real beautiful heroism, and you're right, she does leave, right, and the children don't go with her, which is it Jackie Woodson's? Someone took on like that idea, like of a mom who leaves the kids is like the most villainous thing in literature that we can possibly make. But that's not how this comes out, right? This is a woman who has lived her entire life in service of your father and your family, and who just had more paths to walk down, more life to live, and you really give her a beautiful story within there.
I think now as a mother, I might have written the ending a little differently. Actually, I wrote that book when I wasn't a parent, and now that I'm a parent, I'm like, how could she have left these precious babies? I know, but that's just how it was for me at the time of writing.
Yeah, I mean, stuff changes. I'm even looking. So I'm going to hold them up. Not that everyone can see because lots of people just listen. But even looking at your artwork from this one to that one, you said you had to learn like coloring. Like in this one, all of the folks are pink, right? I was thinking about just like skin color, and there's a subtlety. Like it's fine. It's when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, it's cartoonish, but and it won't always be like this. You I think I'm not an artist, but have grown a little bit as an artist, and so your portrayal of just like the hues of the characters is different. You've grown as an artist. Would you say that's true? I'm not trying to be clumsy or even act this awkwardly.
I actually hired a colorist for both books because I'm so bad at color theory. Because in my practice, I'm more of a black and white type of girl. But it was a conscious decision in the second book to draw Egypt more vividly, because we often see the Middle East portrayed in hues of orange and brown. So I wanted to provide a vibrancy and in the colors, and I think that I almost wanted to do no color in the first book, but my publisher was like, there has to be color in this, and I was like, okay. And so we coincidentally did a red, white, and blue theme, which readers had pointed out, which is very patriotic, and I'm very grateful for that accident. because I didn't even realize. I was like, oh my God, it's perfect.
Question. I work with writers it's the beginning of the year. We're talking in January. I can't tell you the number of people in my classes who are like, I want to write a book this year. So can we talk just a little bit about process? You have a job, and it sounds like a child, and it sounds like you've got all this stuff. How does the writing happen? Like, what's your process? How do you carve time? Can you just let people know what it looks like to try to live a writing life?
I think that you need to tackle a book like a wedding. You are going to plan it, and you're going to try to figure out how much time it's going to take, and you're thinking about the deadline, and then you're going to work backwards. So, for example, I'm not writing a book right now, but I am working on a screenplay with a co-writer in Canada who's also a parent of two, and we meet every week, and we write maybe 3 hours a week, and we have reading projects to do and films to watch, and it is the chief hobby. So if you are a person who exercises as your hobby, or you're a person who goes to book club and reading is your hobby, you need to cut that out and you need to replace it with writing. You can't have it all. You gotta make the room for it. You gotta make the time for it, and it is work. And there are going to be times when it's so frustrating. But just know that when you're feeling really frustrating and you work through it and you get to the other side, it's proof that you can do really hard things in writing. And there are many times when I'm writing a high school comedy with my co-writer, and there are times when I'm like, ugh, this character Amanda, she's just not working. And so we will spend 3 weeks trying to make her work. And then several months later, she's still not working, and just over and over and over we go. But that's part of the process.
So you've calendared it in,
Calendared it in.
You've put that on the calendar. I do think there's, even if the calendar is just something you keep for you, so that you have a co-writer in. It's not Uzma Jalaluddin, is it? Because we talked to her the other day.
Oh, I love her.
How much do I love her?
She's so fun.
Shout out to Uzma, man. We just, let's make t-shirts. I love her. But so putting it on the calendar, even if it's just for you, let's say you don't have a co-writer, I myself know what even small blocks of time I have that are for writing. And if I put that on there, sometimes I'll do it just because it's in the calendar, and I do things that are in my calendar.
I have another tip.
Yeah.
You have to know your limit. I know that after 40 minutes, my brain gets mushy. So I can't do more than 40 minutes. That's it. It's just it's going to be 40 minutes, and I'm going to factor in 20 minutes of me fucking around on my computer before I actually do the work of the 40 minutes. And so time yourself and see how long you get after being you know what, I can't do this anymore. So that's my other trick, is I factor in time for BSing and then calculate how much time I'm actually getting work done.
I read the worst annoying interview by Dan Brown. Is that who wrote the Da Vinci Code?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't know you. Dan, you're probably a lovely person. But I got so mad because he said that he sets a timer and then does push-ups and squats. After, I was just kid, I don't need to hear that stuff. That said, I too find I'm falling asleep writing my own work. I'm like, okay, this is not a great sign. But you do sometimes need to get up from the computer, and you got to befriend the way you work. And if how you work is you need a break, or you need to go around the block, or God forbid, do your push-ups and squats, I allow it. But you're right. You've got to figure out how it is you work. I wrote my my memoir after I tucked my kids in. I had 3 young children at the time. The only time I had at the end of the day was when I was dumb tired. But you can draft dumb tired and then revise in the early morning. Whatever it is I needed to do, that was how my life was happening. And so just little by little, inch by inch, even if it is only in 15-minute, half-hour increments, the time you have is the time you have, and you can still move along. The time you have.
I do a lot of draft. I'm still nursing. Okay. It's 40 minutes. I don't know what he's doing there. He's 2 years old. And he's just he stops, he goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then he nurses. And I'm just But I do a lot of thinking and drafting in my mind. And then the moment I'm he sleeps, I go to my computer and type it down.
Yeah.
Capture
that.
I
learned to do the notes app on my phone. It's just full of because he only had one hand, and I would learn to like dictate quietly, like idea for next book. Aliens at the mall. It's just like, and I go back to it, I'm like, oh, it was just bad idea after bad idea, but it felt powerful to like, because you're stuck and you love them, but you're stuck in this nursing rocker and all you want is a drink of water and there's nothing. You're just, but you've got your little, your phone and you can, I don't know, you can make progress.
How old are your kids now?
Oh, they're much older now. So I have a oldest daughter's in college. She's 19. And then I have two more. I have all teenagers. I have a 15-year-old and I guess my 12-year-old is technically not a teenager, but my baby is 12.
Oh my gosh. I honestly thought you were in your 30s.
Right? Let's go with that. Yeah. I started young. I had the first one when I was like 10. Yeah.
I love that. I can't believe you have 3. That's, as somebody who has 1, I'm like, oh, I don't know how anybody who has more does it.
It gets easier. So, and like I had my first one and then I had a miscarriage and I went back to school. Like there's this space in between. And she is lovely and amazing, but it meant I had to play Barbies with her. I had to do all the stuff with her. And the next 2 I had sort of as a package deal because I was getting older. Mm-hmm. And it meant bath time, you just threw 2 in the bath. And snack time, you just did 2. And like stroller time, it was 2. So I will say that if you have them close enough together, it's just they play with each other. And like they throw toys at each other. So
they don't need mommy to be involved. Yeah. I know all the sounds of the trucks now. It's like vroom, vroom, beep, beep. Like, so.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. That's great.
No, that's wonderful. I love that your kiddo's going to get to go back and experience some of the places that you grew up. Hey, who's a writer crush? Whose work do you love? I mean, I already talked about who's Majella Ladin, but who else's work do you love?
Oh my God. Oh, Jordan Bolton. They just put out a book that I loved. Blue Sky Through the Window of a Moving Car. I'm so jealous of like.
I haven't read this yet. I need to read it.
Oh my God. It's like short comic stories and they're so heart-wrenchingly beautiful. And it's part poetry. It's fiction. I don't know how they do fiction. And it's just like this very short comic poems, I would say. I don't even know what else to call them.
All right, I'm going to check that out.
And
that sounds beautiful.
How good it is. I also love Liana Fink, who is the New Yorker cartoonist who's the master at economy of line. You draw a little, and it's like, that's Donald Trump. How'd she do that? I don't know how she did that. It's incredible.
Are you a self-taught artist? You didn't go to art school? Or did you? I mean, I love that your journals, by the way. I love that you tell us in one of the books that these are actual pages from your diaries and journals. But so you were a scribbler, but the drawing, did you go back and take, I don't know, drawing classes?
I never did. Although after my first book, I was like, I should probably read more comics because I need to learn the rules. There's rules in comics, like what goes into a speech bubble and what goes into a thinking bubble and what goes into how phone call bubbles look like.
Really?
How the past looks like, how, and I do it all in the second book because I had learned after that, like I learned the rules. For example, a phone call has like jagged edges. A thought bubble is always like circles coming out of the mouth rather than a little V. The past is in a different color, usually like a lighter color or black and white. So they're not all like hard and fast rules, but they're interesting. I'm
going to have to go back and look at that because I noticed none of that.
Oh,
but
it's okay.
That's fantastic. Okay, hey, we always like to end with a few icebreakers. I know some people do it at the beginning. I like to do it at the end. These are just this or that questions.
I love
that. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. First one, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yeah. Mountains or beach?
Oh, these days, mountains.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
This is Simon and Garfunkel or Hall & Oates?
Ooh. What's neither? I don't really know their work.
Well, that was in one of your pages. I'm like, that's gotta be
my
about
mom.
her mom.
My mom. I think that she liked Simon and Garfunkel. I think that I'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, how old is this lady? Because I don't think she would have known those. Yeah. Falafel or mochi?
Oh my God. Ugh. I'm in the mood for some mochi right now, so I'm gonna go with mochi.
Gotcha. Thomas or Mustafa?
Oh,
I love your dad.
I hate this game. Thomas. I'm going to choose Thomas.
I'm telling your dad
I
that was not the
know.
right answer. Stewed mung beans or pork buns.
Oh my God. You know what? Stewed mung beans is good for the gut. And let's go
Yeah,
with that.
but growing up, it's okay if you hate them.
So it was like sludge. It was like what you would use to like stop. You could like roll into a ball and like stop a door with it. It's awful.
It sounded awful. Okay, which white people mispronunciation of your name do you dislike more? Malaka or Mulka?
I'll never forget. It was fifth grade. Mrs. Urbakite. Her last name was Urbakite. Okay. Malaka Gharib. Malaka Gharib? Where'd you get Malaka Gharib from? I never forgot it.
Amazing. All right, Malaka Gharib. Which family superstition are you more likely to break? Crying in front of a mirror, or oh, what was the other one I wanted to ask you? Or throwing rice away.
Ah! Ooh, I throw rice away all the time. It's
I'm
so bad. It
telling.
means throwing away money. It's so bad. Don't do it.
I had never heard that before, but I'm thinking about rice differently now. But there's all these things that our parents taught us. Like all the women in my family on the Italian side wore these like horns. My mom called it like a corniche, which is not even real Italian, but like you're supposed to wear a little horn necklace to keep the evil eye away.
Oh my
And I
God.
was like the first woman in my
Looking
family
this
to
up.
not wear it's a horn. It's like a little twisted horn, and you're supposed to wear it to keep the evil eye away.
Wow.
And I was like the first woman in my family not to do that because it sounds dumb. And I don't want a horn around my neck. But like the women in my family are just like, they
Oh my gosh. I have never heard of the horn thing. It sounds really cool though. Maybe it's like the
Yeah,
Mediterranean, like they all
I
got
think
the evil
so.
eye memo.
Yeah, I think so. A few more. Dawson's Creek or Spam.
Oh my God. Oh, ooh, spam.
Yeah. Is that the Filipino side?
Filipino side. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now I fry it with kimchi and rice and I make spam kimchi fried rice and it's so good.
Ooh, that's bananas and maybe delicious. Okay, I go with
Yeah.
that. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I've been waking up at 4 in the morning for the past like several mornings because that's when my kid wakes up and that's just how it is.
It is. It doesn't stay like that. I promise you. My 12-year-old would sleep until noon if I let him.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it doesn't not that's it's like in the distance for you. Like it's a little while yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't stay that way. But I would be murderous at the 4:45. Like I could rally for like those midnight feedings because there was something kind of quiet and beautiful. But when the daylight was coming, just like and you're just like, come on, man, don't do it. And they're up, and you're just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So this morning was mommy fish, daddy fish, Shibu fish, Gus fish. And it was like, all the fish.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay, a couple more. Are you a risk taker or are you the person who always knows where the band-aids are?
Always knows where the band-aids are.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
This is
I'm
a
a rule
fill in the
follower as well.
good to know.
Yeah.
Is a fill in the blank. If you weren't working as a journalist and cartoonist and you had a little magic, what would you like to
Oh my
be
gosh, I love
instead?
this question. A flower arranger,
Really?
floral designer. Yeah.
Do you have favorite flowers that would go in these arrangements?
Um, it would be, I love red roses. I know it's very cheesy, but I love red roses and have always loved this classic. I think it's very
Nice.
chic.
All right. We'll look for arrangements by Molka.
Could you imagine Molka's creations?
Well, we'll workshop it.
This is inspiring me to draw business cards for my imaginary businesses.
I love it. I love it. What do you love about where you live?
Oh man. Have you ever been to Nashville?
Okay, so it's not all drunk brides, but there is a portion of it that's drunk like girls getting married. But when you get past that, like it's the only place I've ever been where just like you could see live music here with a band that's amazing that you've never met, and then you can go over here. I went to a jazz club in Nashville, like under the highway by the chicken place.
Wow.
Amazing. I'm still in love with that woman. So I have been to Nashville, but sell me on it.
Yeah, I think that Nashville is The only thing that I can think about is that it has its own style. Like people here, for example, like really care about denim
Okay.
and denim and boots. And I know that sounds very cliche, but that's what I love about it. It's like you be here, you wear cool boots, wear cool denim, and you're like Southern and eating biscuits, you know? I love that I can walk down the street here and people like actually say good morning to you, and it's not weird. Good morning. Happy holidays to you, Pam. Have a great day. It's one of those places. And it's like, I don't, in DC, it's like I lived in a building and I never even knew my neighbors for the 3 years I lived there. You know?
Yeah,
I
I
remember
like
when I
that.
first visited Nashville, somebody said Merry Christmas to me. And I said, excuse me? Merry Christmas? Please.
That's right. Yeah, because you're south of whatever the line was, Mason
Yeah.
Dixon or whatever. Gotcha. Last two. What's your favorite ice cream?
Ooh, my favorite ice cream is strawberry. Has been since I was 4.
Sweet. And last one. If we were to take a picture of you really happy and doing something you love, what would we see?
Oh, my family. I know this is so cheesy. I've become one of those people. Like, I can't believe it. Motherhood has changed me so much, but like, I have always told myself I'll never be that mother who like just becomes a person who is a mother. It's so embarrassing. And now I'm like, mother. I want a picture of me and my child and my husband and my dog.
Yeah, yeah, because it's beautiful. There's a
It is.
reason. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Oh, in I Was There American Dream, you wrote what it means to be, is it mabayet?
Mabait.
Yeah, which is Tagalog for kind. And it's like respect your elders and like be easy to get along with and not make waves and be a good person in general. I was like, oh, wow. I'm like a kid of Irish Italian people, and you're a kid of Filipino Egyptian people, and we grew up in America, and like I saw this, I mean, this mabait is a way forward for all of us, a commonality that I wouldn't have known that all of our people had. So thank you for coming to the show today and for sharing your personal history, and for anyone who ever feels out of step with their culture or their family or their identity, man, these books are just such a gift.
Thank you so much, Annmarie, and thank you for the wonderful, thoughtful interview. And I appreciate you taking the time to read my books.
Oh, they're fantastic. I have kids. They're gonna get them. Folks, our guest today has been Malaka Guy. So oh my God, I almost said it wrong. Now I've been goofing around. Malaka Gharib. See,
Yeah.
now I'm like the white lady getting your name wrong.
Oh, no,
Malaka
it's
Gharib, the author of the graphic memoirs, It Won't Always Be Like This, and I Was Their American Dream. You can find them at a library or an indie shop near you. To everyone listening, we're wishing you love and light wherever the day takes you. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and we'll see you again soon on this wild and precious journey.